Hello and welcome to the Wellness Hub podcast, a show dedicated to uncovering the future of healthy living. Each week, we aim to bring you content that supports your personal health journey through insightful conversations with amazing guests. We explore various topics ranging from healthy eating, technology, fitness, mindfulness, and more. Now let's join our host, Drew Munro, co-founder and CEO of UpMeals, a Vancouver-based food tech startup on a mission to make healthy meals accessible through technology.
Hello and welcome to the Wellness Hub. As always, we're thrilled to have you with us for yet another edition of Wellness Wednesdays. Every single week, we're hosting amazing guests and having insightful conversations into food, technology, mindfulness, entrepreneurship, and more. And as always, we hope you find these conversations valuable and insightful on your own wellness journey. Our conversation tonight starts with a question. Do you remember the last large group event that you attended? The last time that you saw two people get married in front of their family and friends, or the last time you celebrated with your coworkers in person over amazing food and drinks? If you're like the vast majority of us in the world, it's been more than a year since you've had that type of connection. Our special guest tonight is a BC Top 40 Under 40 award recipient, and for the last 14 years has been a part of one of the largest and most reputable full-service event catering companies in Western Canada. For more than 40 years, their organization, the Lazy Gourmet, has been a part of some of the most iconic celebrations in Vancouver, ranging from the 2010 Olympics to the PGA Tour to the Dalai Lama Conference. And tonight, at the center of our discussions, is how events companies have needed to adapt amidst all of the challenges of the past year, and really what the future of events will look like. And a reminder, as we discuss these important topics, please comment with your questions on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, or wherever you're watching. We will be answering audience questions throughout the show. So without further ado, please welcome our special guest this evening, the General Manager of Lazy Gourmet Catering and Events, Kevin Mazzone. Kevin, welcome to the Wellness Hub.
Hi, Drew. Well, thank you so much for having me. That was quite the introduction, so thank you for that as well.
Oh, my pleasure. And Kevin, I want to go sort of right back to the start with you. Do you remember where your passion for that face-to-face connection and engagement came from?
I mean, I've always loved food. I mean, one of the biggest things we always say in events, it's like, even if it's as simple as like a meeting, at lunch hour, there's always food around. So I always loved, big family gatherings, birthday parties, anniversaries, christenings, anytime we could get together as a family. And I think that's where it kind of started. Obviously going to school and meeting your friends, everything revolved around recess, lunch, right? So I think that was the start for sure.
And talk to me a little bit about your background. So I understand you did an undergrad in communications and you had some roles. You didn't necessarily jump right into the service industry. So sort of what was the early part of your career?
Yeah, so I never thought I was going to be a caterer or be in the industry for as long as I have, or made a career of it. I originally was taking retail jobs, in Vancouver, which is actually where I met Susan Mendelson, who's the founder of the Lazy Gourmet. She was one of my clients at one of the stores that I was working at, and so. When we met, I knew her actually for probably 2 years before I actually started working with her. It was kind of funny. One day she was shopping with her daughter, and she was saying, it's like, I like good people, and you're good people. I need an assistant, and I'm not asking you to do it, but like, do you know any like good people must know good people? So could you let me know if someone would be good for this? And I said, you know what, I couldn't see myself in retail for the rest of my life. I was in the middle of doing my undergrad. And so I said, I would love to be your assistant. And she said, no, don't you even think about it. Like, I could never pay you what you need to make. Like, I don't want you to be my assistant. Just suggest someone. I said, I'm going to meet with you on Monday. So then I went to the office on Monday. She actually sat me down with like all her team at the time, trying to talk me out of working for her. I said kind of like, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to give it a try. And so I started off as her assistant, which was doing, like a lot of personal assistant stuff, not just stuff in the company. And then it just grew from there.
So that sounds like the sort of classic, like indirect headhunt, like I have this great job. I think she knew exactly what she was doing is my hunch there.
Oh, trust me, I've used it. I've used it as well.
I'm not saying it needs to be you, but let me perfectly describe this role that I think you're perfect for, but it's not for you. Somebody else could do this. So I think she knew exactly what she was doing. So at that point, that was what? That was 14 years ago, I believe, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So what was the team like at that stage when you started? How big was the team?
Yeah, so the team, they had about probably 30 people working there. The building, they had just closed down the cafe and worked specifically on catering. It was then where actually Shannon Boudreau, she kind of started at the same time, who's our director of sales. And so we actually have been together the whole time. And they recently had, with the assistant that left, some turnover. And so Shannon and I actually both found the opportunity to be able to, work together and build a new team. And it just grew and grew and grew from there.
And so from what I understand, I mean, your sort of career with Lazy, I mean, you started as kind of a personal assistant, and then it seems like from what I see here, you had this meteoric rise. So now it's just before the 2010 Vancouver Olympics start, and you get promoted to GM of Lazy Gourmet Catering. So tell me a little bit about, no pressure. Like what was that like?
Yeah, no, it was pretty interesting. So what basically happened there was we had the team to pull off, the Olympics. We knew what we had when it was in place, but what we needed was more leadership. We knew we were going to need it to manage all the different contracts that we were winning. So it was that time that it was kind of the perfect fit. And, at that time, I also decided that, catering was for me, and that, I did want to do it long term. And this was going to be an investment in myself and, my career as a caterer and at the Lazy Gourmet.
And so what was that experience like? I mean, you're being promoted to this huge role right before this absolutely massive event takes place with the Vancouver 2010 Olympics. So walk me through, what was that like for you?
It was honestly one of the most amazing experiences of my career. We were in meetings with GE Worldwide, the country of France, right? So these people were coming in, representing these organizations, and really wanting a local touch to an international project. And so it was, we kind of divided and conquered in the company. We all took on a major client. And we worked on the big food service for PwC, General Electric, Russia, Poland, France. We also made sure that we carved out a lot of time for our local clients, our corporate clients, but also our private clients. It was really important that we didn't lose what we were known for, going into people's homes and creating, really exciting food and beverage programs. And so we were able to pull it off. It was the craziest day. Well, the games itself, I think, were 17 days, but it was probably 6 months lead up and then 6 months of cooling down after that. But after that, I mean, we knew that between Shannon and I, we knew that we could, take on anything.
And now, I mean, that was such a crown jewel, it's sort of a defining moment in your career in the company. You've been doing this now for over 14 years. In your opinion, in what ways have you seen the catering industry shift and change over the years?
I mean, the industry itself, it's really nice to see, there's a lot more collaboration now than there even was when I first started. We definitely see people coming together. When I started, caterers weren't allowed to provide liquor to our clients.
Yes.
I'm sure you remember that. Even.
the dark ages, yes, as we call them. Yeah.
And so, that was the first time that I was able to go, at a table with all the big caterers in the city, and come together and take on the government, basically, to say that we were the best people to do this, not just as a company, but as an industry. So that to me has been really cool. The adoption of technology in our industry, I think, has been amazing. We were doing pretty analog. I will say that Susan was one of the first caterers to ever have a computer. So it says that.
Pioneering,
But
yes.
yeah, no. But even just like the adoption of Routific and like routing softwares and proposal softwares, that's been a big shift even in the last 14 years. Yeah. I think too, like even healthy competition too, like, it's been, at the very beginning, there really was only a handful of, legendary, like long-term caterers. There's a lot more now, with the commissary kitchens popping up and everything, there's less barriers to enter, and which is kind of cool.
I think so. I think it makes the whole industry better. And I think that, it makes it stronger. It gives people more choices, and therefore there's more value for the customers that have to be delivered as a result. And I guess, my question would be, as you've built Lazy Gourmet along with the team to this, this huge company with so many employees, what are some of those difficult decisions you've had to make, and what have some learning opportunities been?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, one definitely pops into my mind, even in the past 14 years, let alone our 2-year history in the company, trends kind of come and go. But I'm always reminded, and it's like grained in my mind, of when Groupon kind of came onto the scene.
Right.
And we thought, how this is a great way to get into people's homes, for people to try our product that never were be able to have the exposure to catering before. And it was just one of the biggest flops of my career, in terms of just like pivoting to the packaging, the product. It was like all new to us, and we were putting it on display to, I think we sold 1,500 Groupons in the first hour of being for sale, and it was just too fast. And so I'm always remembered when we, even during the pivots during the pandemic, is to really think things out. How is it like every piece of the puzzle going to fit together before we roll something out?
Yeah, absolutely. And now, sort of speaking to the point you just made, I mean, that happened a while ago, but the pandemic going on now, like a business like the events industry that is literally built on large groups and social interactions. So, talk to me a little bit about how Lazy Gourmet has, navigated this really difficult situation over the past year.
Yeah. So, I mean, realistically, if I hear the word pivot, I know I just used it, but if I hear the word pivot one more time, it's like, you're going to scream. But
pivot or unprecedented. Those are the two words I never want to hear again. Yeah.
Exactly. But I mean, it really is a difficult time. And I mean, when we came together, we basically went from having 150 employees to one.
Wow.
And then we slowly brought people back as much as we could. But at one point there was nothing to do. People were inside all the time, just not gathering and not, needing us. So we worked really hard to put an online ordering system together, like really quickly at the beginning, working with our partners, like graphic designers and people that we trusted, to create that connection. So we're not necessarily in front of them physically anymore, but we could be in front of them digitally. So the online ordering system has really allowed us to connect with our clients in a different way than that they were used to. It's also different now. I mean, before we were doing 50, 60 orders a day. Now it's either none or hundreds. When we're doing like the big galas and the fundraisers and the conferences that are now digital, we're delivering to each individual person's home. Right. So again, using that technology where typically it would be analog, someone, writing out the schedule, where we've adopted using a program that allows us to really do that much quicker. The other big pivot, or I guess addition to our company that we've done, is we opened up a commissary called the Commissary Gourmet, which was really cool because we were able to collaborate with a company called Commissary Connect to open it up. And that's been kind of the biggest jewel of, COVID times for me personally, because I've been able to work with them, and then in turn, 12 members that we have working at our kitchen, our old kitchen, our old building, and we get to work with these people daily from a mentorship role to their landlord.
Wow. And talk to me, like what sorts of operators are working in this facility right now? Of the 12 operators, who's being gravitated to this concept?
Totally. I mean, honestly, it's a little bit of everyone. We have people that don't have business license that I'm like helping them, like apply
You need to do this.
Yeah, before you can like get
Yeah.
insurance and
Yeah.
come into the kitchen.
Sure.
To people that have been there, been in business for 10 years and maybe we're at a different commissary or needed to scale down or just scale differently, because of the pandemic. So there's a lot of them are like this ghost kitchen concept. So they're restaurants that don't actually have a physical space, using DoorDash, Uber Eats, that talk, those sorts of apps to get their food delivered. We also have people, the cookie jar, dip and sips. Like these guys are really, looking to springboard their concept, starting small and then growing, which is really interesting because originally we had planned to have 20 stations with 20 different members, whereas we actually started to scale it down to allow people to grow. So instead of having 20 lots like smaller spaces, we cut it down to 12 members that we were really going to incubate and mentor, and so they have room to grow with, and we can grow with them by renting them more space.
Amazing. And I want to touch on something you mentioned just previously with the galas and some of the work you're doing. I understand you guys just had a big feature in the media about that platform and that program. So I think it shows for the craving for that connection, that people are willing to take these big galas and fundraisers online for these important causes. Tell me a little bit about what the experience is like for one of the attendees.
Totally. I mean, it's all about a shared experience, and that's why events themselves, are so, special. And so what we've done is we've created a program that allows, well, I should back up. One of the first things we thought about when we were talking about what catering is going to look like during the pandemic is like, who needs catering? The corporate client could, postpone a Christmas party or postpone a launch of something, on the catering side of things. But these organizations, have events to raise money, right? And if you get 70% of your budget from your signature event, or fundraiser, these organizations needed to continue this. So we worked with we always have worked with people like Big Sisters, the Dr. Peter Center. So we work with them directly right away to say, what does this look like? And so working with them, we decided that, that the at-home concept does work, by putting kind of all the different elements that you would put into an event, put it into a box, and deliver it right to their door, and have an online experience and still share it, I think we found is very important, and people still are craving it even after a year.
And you touched on charity work and fundraisers. I know that now, and even before COVID, this was something that was actually really important to Lazy Gourmet and to yourself personally. I know you do a lot of philanthropy work, so talk to me a little bit about what that means to you and some of the organizations that you work with.
I mean, again, I think it's just so important that people realize that like these organizations still need to offer their services, and the only way that they can do that is through fundraising and through volunteers. And so, Susan Mendelson, is our founder and truly our rock throughout all this. And she just admits philanthropy and volunteerism, everything that she does. She's on a number of boards, and every time. I mean, we even have time, in normal days that to take time off work to go volunteer, right? It's just part of our business,
right?
And so working with I get Big Sisters, the O'Dane, BC Cancer Foundation, Ballet BC, Arts Umbrella, all of these organizations needed us, and we were there for them, or we are there for them.
And I want to remove COVID from the equation now, because I think something that's so impressive about what you do, what any large high quality caterer like Lazy Gourmet does, is that rapid scale piece. That ability to do a dinner for 12 or for 1,200 and keep it the same level of quality. Like, talk to me a bit. Like, how do you start to wrap your head around managing an operation like that?
Yeah, honestly, one of the biggest things we thought, during COVID is like keeping our staff. And and that's the answer to your question right there, is that like our the consistency of our employees is what makes us, but also gives us the ability to scale. When we have, all of our managers have over, 7 years of work with us, most of them over 10, some of them 26 years. There's two
Wow.
people. Yeah. And so that gives us right there our ability to scale. And then, sticking true to our values. I mean, we always see it's any company is the same thing, but, when we think of, who we are, putting in that same value for 12 guests as for 1,200 guests, and to never lose it. It's just so important.
And you're as the GM, I mean, you're helping drive this very important messaging that you're receiving from being mentored by Susan. So with so many responsibilities you have on the go, a massive company like this, where do you personally get your drive and motivation from? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Oh gosh, I mean, I would say it's definitely our clients,
Yeah.
if that's as cheesy as that to say, and then it's our employees. I mean, honestly, something that was so special to me throughout all this is, everyone was working from home, and then as soon as it was safe enough to, obviously for the food production, we're in our kitchen, so they had to come to work, and then the sales team too, they wanted to come back. Right? They wanted the connection of like the other staff members. So it was so important to make sure our office and production facility was ready for them to come back safely, because really people want that connection. And that's definitely what gets me through all this and gets me up for sure.
And another thing that is not necessarily the most talked about subject in our industry of hospitality is self-care and mental health. And I think it should be. And yourself as a busy professional, and when things are going full tilt at Lacey Gourmet, I know you're doing tons of events every single day. So how do you unwind? What is your favorite form of self-care to make sure you're taking care of yourself?
Oh yeah, I mean, whenever we have, Whistler. Honestly, we have a place in Whistler, and whenever we can go up, we do. Even if it's for one night on the weekend, we trying to plan it in between the events during normal time was all really important to me. And getting outside. We live in Vancouver; it's the West Coast. It's just really important to take that time. And even if you have to schedule it. I won't be working here, giving responsibility to the people that, really, step up every day in our business, and they let them run with it, is really important for sure.
And one of the things, that I often hear from young entrepreneurs, much like the ones coming into the new commissary project and people just getting started, is that it's okay. I don't need to make time for myself. I'm going to work like crazy and build my business. I don't need that. I'll sleep when I'm dead, so to speak, So what would your advice be to, those entrepreneurs that are, prioritizing the hustle over prioritizing, themselves?
I mean, the biggest thing is don't burn out. I mean, if you are self-employed, you're like one of one type thing. The burnout is so real. And I think that, if you can schedule your self-care and make sure that you have time to refresh, you're going to be better off for it, and you're going to be better off longer for it.
I couldn't agree with you. Kevin, we've got a couple questions coming in from the audience here. We've got a question from Facebook. So this is a question I actually am wondering your insights on too. Are buffets going to be a thing in a post-COVID world?
That's honestly, we get this question every day. What we've been doing, or what we would be doing if we were able to work, is yes, there will be a thing. It will be. It just acts more like a station though, so they're typically going to be served rather than self-serve. If the guests aren't going to be interacting with the food when it's on a table set up like a buffet, but having the staff serve it for them is definitely what it's going to look like after.
And we have another question coming in here. What do you think catering will look like? What does the future of catering look like in the coming years?
I honestly think it's just going to be a lot more collaboration, between the caterer and the client. It's not a time where you're going to go and see A, B, or C. Pick one. We'll see you on Saturday. anymore. It's really going to be about the comfort level of the guests, the comfort level of the clients, and talking about what we can do to make sure that the service is safe and to the level of which the client needs.
And we've got another question here. So, okay, this one I think I'm curious your answer to. What in your opinion of the services that you used to offer, pre-COVID, what's a no-go? What in your opinion will never be a thing anymore in the catering world?
Oh gosh. I don't even know. I mean, we're usually pretty good at problem solving, so it's I've seen honestly.
What about I just had a thought come to my mind. I know you guys have done this. I've seen it on your Instagram. What about grazing stations? Do you think grazing stations will be a thing? That's a small one, but you guys do them for like hundreds of people, right?
Totally. Yes. I honestly think the same way as I was talking about with the buffet, like we've definitely done like a served grazing board. And so basically like the guests would come up, there might even be plexiglass in between the guest and the food. And it's like, okay, I'd like some carrots and, those mushrooms, and I'd like the tuna. And then maybe like the carpaccio, and then the plates put together for you and given to the guest. I mean, people buy like the grazing boards because they're just so beautiful. They're plentiful. It's so West Coast, with local food. And so I think we'll be seeing grazing boards.
But what you're saying, Kevin, is that there's going to be like an interceptor to prevent a guest or somebody like me from going and stealing all of the really expensive good stuff off the grazing station. Yeah. That's what you're saying, basically. All the caviar and all that. Yeah.
There's going to be a lot more policing. Let's put it that way.
This should have been a thing pre-COVID. You know what I mean? Like this is an innovation.
I mean, I think the level of service that's going to be at events is going to be elevated for sure. I think you're going to definitely be seeing more staff at the events to make sure that rules are followed and that the service is just so top notch that you won't have any issues.
And this is another question. We'll take one more here. I'm actually curious about this one too. So it's about the venues. So the venues become sort of critical because it's going to be important to dictate how much distancing you can have. I think there'll be distancing in effect for a long time. So, how will the need to source larger venues affect catering? Will smaller venues struggle as a result? What do you think will happen to that economy?
I honestly just think they're going to be different. And I definitely think that the pricing structure of venues is going to change. No longer is it going to be, like I said before, like one size fits all. You're definitely going to see, not just like, you have an event concept being crammed into a certain venue. I think there's going to be, again, more dialogue between the event planner, the caterer, the venue, making sure that it's the right fit. And then, and I think you're just going to see different events at different venues. You're not just going to see it kind of blanket everywhere.
And my final question, which is an important one, you work around food almost every single day. What is your go-to meal when you're feeling like you need something comforting or a pick-me-up?
Oh gosh, it's either sushi or Italian food. It's either at Mazzone or Giardino. Yeah.
Awesome. Two great recommendations if anyone's in Vancouver and hasn't tried those. And Kevin, where can our listeners go to find out more information about either yourself or about Lazy Gourmet?
Well, I mean, the best way is our website. I mean, we keep our blog pretty active as well. Obviously Instagram. And Facebook, that's where the most visually beautiful places to catch us. But the blog is definitely where we put, question and answers, meet Susan, what we're up to. And that's probably the best way.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us here tonight on the Wellness Hub, Kevin. It was great to connect with you and discuss all things event related. I really appreciate your time, and please take care and say hi to the team for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was my pleasure.
Thank you, Kevin. So I don't know about you, but didn't this conversation really make you long to have a big, delicious meal with all of your friends and family there? It wasn't long ago when at times a common complaint was, oh, I got to go to so many weddings this year. I got to go to so many weddings this summer. It's amazing how quickly things can change and how much we appreciate something once it's gone. While I'm confident that it won't be long before we can all break bread together, what permanent changes will be left on an events industry that's been in survival mode for more than a year? How quickly will normalcy resume? And what will the future of events look like? We got some great insights from Kevin during this conversation. What I do know is that large organizations like Lazy Gourmet, they've been innovating for more than 4 decades, and they continue to be thought leaders as we navigate this very complicated reopening and recovery period. But no matter how we are eating, what we can all say confidently is the simple and satisfying act of enjoying a meal together is a privilege, and it's not to be taken for granted. Lazy Gourmet and other caterers like them, they're providing that conduit of human connection through food for our most special occasions. And while the industry remains one of the hardest hit of the entire pandemic, I believe they help provide what we'll be longing for the most when we're safely able to: human connection. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. If you'd like to engage with us and join the discussion, please follow us on YouTube, Instagram, or LinkedIn at UpMeals. We'll see you next Wednesday evening right here on the Wellness Hub for another great conversation. I'm Drew Munro. Until then, take care and be well.